Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to a class on conjunctions. But we're not only going to look at conjunctions, because when I teach conjunctions, I want everybody to know right from the beginning that there are different types of conjunction, and there are other words which also link ideas together, which are not conjunctions, but which are similar. Okay, because they're similar in that they link ideas together, but they're still different. They function differently, and we'll see that when we look at conjunctive adverbs, which are adverbs, they're not conjunctions. But notice the adjective we use to describe the adverb, and it's conjunctive. And so, yeah, we're saying that this is an adverb which is a little bit like a conjunction. And prepositions, yeah, which are very different, in my opinion, from all of these. And quite often there are mistakes, yeah, because people mix up these different parts of speech, yeah, because that's what these are. These are different parts of speech. And, I think that in the UK, we don't often learn much about parts of speech at school. I think English kids very often learn that these are linking words, and they don't learn to separate them into different groups, yeah, but it's actually very useful. And if they did learn to separate them into different groups, they would be able to punctuate their sentences confidently, okay? But it's also important for foreign students to learn these different groups, and that's because they'll be able to punctuate confidently, but they'll also be able to make sure they avoid mistakes where they mix up their prepositions and their conjunctions. But we'll see this in a second. I'll show you the common mistakes that I see in my classes. But firstly, we have the fanboys conjunctions, yeah? And fanboys, I'm glad to say there are only 7 of them. And fanboys is an abbreviation to help you remember them. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. And being honest, the main ones that you hear in conversation are but, and so, and maybe or. Yeah, I think yet, nor, and for are much rarer nowadays. For is common in literature, but I don't think it's as common in conversation. But still, it's an important word. It's a fanboy's word. And, all of these words are called coordinating conjunctions, if you want the technical term. They're all called coordinating conjunctions because they join equal elements. Yeah, and that's very important. They must join equal elements. And if they don't join equal elements, well, then they're breaking the rules of parallel structure. Yeah, anytime you see a list, you should have equal elements in that list, and we use these fanboys conjunctions in those lists, don't we? We use and in a list, we use or in a list, and so be really aware that these must join equal elements, and I mean the similar parts of speech. This is why parts of speech are important. So we'll look at the mistakes with that in a moment. But for the moment, I want you to know that when you join 2 main clauses with a fanboys conjunction, when you do this, you need a comma before the fanboys conjunction, okay? You need main clause, comma, and main clause, or main clause, comma, but main clause, okay? That's very important. That's one comma rule that you can memorize, and I want you to use it in your writing, of course, because you can't really use commas in your speaking, but you can pause for the commas, of course. So these fanboys conjunctions, they're very